Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harping on Rugby preview show. And join me to look ahead to Leinster's New Year's Day assignment is someone making his 48th pod appearance. Welcome back to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Happy to be back. Thanks a million.
Indeed, good to have you. Well, first, we haven't had John in a while. Just thought I'd start with getting your quick thoughts on the win down at Thomond Park, if you don't mind talking about it.
I don't mind talking about it because a win is a good thing. I don't think the scoreline really tells the story of what went on down there. I was talking to somebody this evening who was in Thomond and suggested that Munster had the wind against them in both halves, which is like that age-old thing, when back in my day where you walked uphill both ways to school, uphill there and uphill back again. I think whatever about the scoreline, it's 4 points away from home. It's getting out of there with a win. And I'm even okay with conceding a bonus point in the process. It's not the worst way for things to finish. And now I think it's time to move on and get on with the next game. And I think there are many, many, many people who need to really learn about that, who need to stop picking holes in every single little moment of the game and say, oh, well, the ref screwed us here and this should have been a penalty there. And absolutely demographics were against us in this particular moment of the game and all this kind of thing. You can absolutely guarantee that the Munster squad have looked at the game and they've watched the tape and now they've said, okay, it is time to move on and it's time to focus on our next game. And I think there are other people who could probably doing the same. And I think those same people need to remember that age-old thing of you can be bitter or you can be better. And I think some of them need to be a little bit better and stop starting arguments on the internet when the lads on the pitch are going to look. As I say, they're going to have looked at that and said, here's where we can improve. Here's where we didn't capitalize, or here's where we did capitalize, or whatever else that they're doing in their video session. And time for the fans to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It used to be the other way for us back in the noughties. It was Munster winning everything, and if we spent all our time just looking at what they were doing, there's no way we were gonna improve. And that's just basically that goes for life in general, not just rugby, but you just concentrate on your own thing for sure. But no, definitely a really, really good win. It looked more comfortable second watch. That, and like you say, 9-3 doesn't really reflect the way the game went. It was a lot more comfortable than that. It's almost as though we had a 2-score lead almost throughout. The way Leinster played and the Leinster did their game management as well in particular.
I don't think there was ever a moment where you kind of felt, geez, Munster could get over the line here. Whatever about, geez, we could give away some penalties here and that's what could get them the victory. I didn't feel like they were ever going to get over the try line, whereas I felt we left some chances behind.
Yeah.
So genuinely, I'm pretty positive about it from that point of view.
Definitely. Well, let's start talking about how we take it from there and talk about our feature match of the week, which is, of course, Leinster v Ulster in round 9 of the 23-24 BKT United Rugby Championship. It's taking place at the RDS on New Year's Day, kicking off at 5:15 p.m. TV coverage in Ireland is on RTE2, Premier Sports, and URC.tv. As ever, you can find the full listings of the weekend on harpinonrugby.com. Just click the Rugby on TV tab. Leinster named their match day 23 at lunchtime on Friday. If you're watching on YouTube, it's, of course, right there on the screen. For pod listeners, it's in the program notes. Now, Conor has picked out 3 Harpin points from the Leinster lineup, starting with the tight 5.
Yeah, I think there's a few people surprised that Sheehan is out again. I think there are definitely a few reckoned his IRFU minutes would start kicking in. But then when you consider when did he come back, and yeah, he's played a lot since then, but he hasn't played a huge amount of Leinster minutes this season. And I think when we get past the European competition in a couple of weeks, that's when the break will kick in, heading into the Six Nations. But to have Healy starting again, it's great to see Healy starting, especially You look at the injury he got going into the World Cup and the worries that there might have been that could that have been much more serious than it is. But I think it's great to have him there. And Clarkson came on the bench looking very, very, very hungry, looking like he wanted to be on much, much sooner and be doing a job. So it's great that he's getting the chance this weekend. And then you've got Jenkins and Ryan making up the engine room. And I think, as a team, that front five are going to have their work cut out for them. Because I think Ulster are putting out what is arguably their best front five in Kitchoff, Herring, O'Toole, Treadwell, and Henderson. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I think it'll be great to see how Clarkson does against Kitchoff. Kitchoff's had a funny start to the season, in my opinion. I don't think he's getting the kind of rewards he would have been getting in a South African scrum since he's started playing for Ulster. Now, look, this is going to be the kind of game where that's what changes. Where all of a sudden, oh, there he is. That's what we were expecting. It's the kind of big match mentality that would bring that around. But our own tight five, they've got a lot of work to do. Having Ryan back and as captain, I know there are those who are concerned with Ryan as captain with various things that have happened over the last few weeks. I'm not concerned from that perspective. I think he'll make good choices. I think he'll make good decisions. And I think as long as he's working on how he talks to the ref and why he talks to the ref, then we shouldn't have any problems at all. And I think, it's worth throwing a mention into the back rows as well, though I didn't want to focus on them too much because, the names on the page say a lot for themselves with, for us, Connors, Doris and Baird. For them, it's Ray, Reppel and Timoney. I think there'll be a good fight there, but I genuinely think we have the slight edge in the back row over Ulster.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for your second point, you just want to talk about our halfbacks.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of me as a skeptical view on why wasn't Jamison Gibson-Park playing at the weekend? Was this genuinely that his hamstring pulled up a little tight? Or was it a case of, right, they've thought all week you're playing, but we know you're not? And there's a little bit of cynicism in me thinks there might be something of that, but having him back is always a positive. I don't want to say anything particularly negative against McGrath, who came on for his first game in 6 weeks, and I think had a decent game. I know there are others even commenting on your own page on Facebook afterwards, suggesting McGrath didn't have a good game. I think for a fella just back from 6 weeks injury, starting in one of the biggest games of the year, I think he had a decent game. Yes, there are things that I'm looking at. Why'd you kick it that far? Or why'd you make that decision? Or why did you run
the
it
thing
there?
about the thing about McGrath was what we got from him. I think the whole essence of his shift was the end, the series at the end, the phases when we needed to put, and there was phase after phase after phase. That's what we expected from him coming off the bench, not playing a full 80 minutes in the rain, having come back from 6 weeks injury. So even whatever happened before, I think he proved it. He proved his worth right there at the end.
I was very impressed by how well he did, for it being his first game back and not necessarily being in the headspace that comes with having played last week or the week before. With that said, I think Jamison Gibson-Park brings something different, and it's something very, very positive. I've said before, I want to see his heat map afterwards. I want to see where was he and how much he's running and what are the meters he's putting in, getting from side to side, as well as the up and down meters. So I think it's great to have him back, and with McGrath on the bench to keep things solid afterwards when he's done. I think we're pretty well stocked there. Prendergast starting is a massive statement of faith in him, in his ability, in his future. I'm delighted to see him starting. I think it's absolutely brilliant. He, whatever about any other player and who else might you want at 10 or not want at 10 or whatever else. I think Sam Prendergast is the future for us. And these are the kinds of games he needs to have an opportunity in. So it's great to see him start and see, especially with who he has around him. I mean, when you look at that pack, providing a platform for him, and when you look at the players who are going to protect him in Baird and Connors and Doris, and make sure he has the room to work.
And I'm not
I'll be
sure, has
really
he played
interested.
with Gibson Park before?
I don't think so.
No. So
Gibson
that'd be,
Park may have come off the
yeah,
bench while he was still on, and then he'd gone off 5 minutes later, kind of a
yeah.
thing.
But for
So I think,
starting and putting in a
yeah,
good few minutes with them, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
I think it's going to be really, really good to watch. And they're up against it in, I think more so in Cooney than in Burns. I think there are a lot of Ulster fans looking, going, "Oh, Burns," because he hasn't really delivered what they've wanted. Now, again, like I said already, an interpro is a different ball game to playing against, I don't know, Cardiff or playing against Benetton or whoever. So I think both sets of half packs will have to step it up a little bit, because you want to be creative. You want to give your pack room to do what they've got to do, so that they're creating space for the backs and as Jamie likes to say, earning that right to go wide. So I think the half-back battle will be good. I'd much sooner have seen Doak starting than Cooney, because I think Cooney is playing the better rugby right now.
Yeah.
And I think he's playing some. I think he's trying to play his way back into an Irish squad, maybe. I don't know. You're at the start of a World Cup cycle. Do you really invest in a player of his age? And that's not to try and disrespect him. It's just that sense of, we've got 4 years to build for a World Cup. Do we really want to have him coming off a bench against whoever in the Six Nations? But I think he's really putting in the work, and he's really playing the kind of rugby that might give him that opportunity. But I think Prendergast versus Burns will be a much more entertaining battle than anything else on the pitch, really.
Definitely. And for your third point, you want to talk about the Leinster bench?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're bringing on, whatever about Barron being less experienced, and Boyle. Boyle has played some really, really good rugby so far this season. And I said it in the group chat at one stage that I wouldn't be surprised to see much, much more of him as the season progresses. I think he's really, really demonstrating his worth and demonstrating why he's there, why he's in the mix. But then you've got Ala Alatoa, Joe McCarthy, Jack Conan, Luke McGrath, and Josh van der Fleer, all as and Harry Byrne is also an Irish international. So, with the exception of Baron Boyle and Ala Alatoa, we've got a bench full of Irish internationals to be able to bring on. Who's going to complain about that? We're going for the 6-2 split again, which is this Nienavar's influence, or is it just a case of, we know how much we're going to be asking of the forwards, so we're going to need one more to just put in that extra little bit of grunt in the last 20 minutes, half an hour. But it's an incredibly strong bench, and when you compare it to what they have, with, I suppose, the exception of maybe Stewart, Doak, and Lowry, those are three who I think are very much in the mix all the time for Ulster as potential starters. I think we have the stronger bench, and I think that's what's going to make the difference in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And 6-2, especially with someone like Harry as the non scrum half, it makes for an interesting debate over who's going to replace who in the back line. There'll be a lot of I'm assuming. Well, for one thing, I want to say it's good to see Tommy O'Brien back. It's into the lineup. He definitely deserves deserves to run the squad. But you just wonder who's Harry can play 12. I'm assuming as well. So maybe and then Henshaw could play 13. Who would go to fullback if Jimmy O'Brien has to come off? Maybe, I mean, could it be Henshaw? I don't know. But we just hope we don't have to find out.
No,
But it just opens up a lot
I
of
reckon.
debates.
I reckon if something happened, Jimmy O'Brien, it'd be Tommy O'Brien into
Yeah,
fullback,
probably. Yeah, yeah,
and
that's more likely.
um, Henshaw
Robbie's fullback
between
days
13 and
are
Turner
long
onto the
line.
wing.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, listen, like I say, hopefully that doesn't happen. But no, it's a strong lineup. But let's have a quick look at Ulster's now as well. We mentioned them, good few of them already, but their lineup together, it's like you say, it's almost like a full bore lineup. They're kind of in need of a win, a good result. So they look like they're going out strong.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the matchups, their front row I've mentioned already, Kitchoff, Herring, and O'Toole. That's pretty much their top level. This is who we want week in, week out, front row. Um, you've got Burns there, but with Lowry as cover, and Lowry wants to be, he wants to be a 10. You know, he doesn't want to be playing full back, but he can cover that if needs be, if something happened to Addison. Um, you've got Stuart McCluskey up against Robbie Henshaw. And you feel like that's going to be Henshaw's job all day. Just tackle Stuart McCluskey between himself and Connors, make sure he's not getting ground. Um, I know with our own bench, I know there's a few people who were looking saying, "Oh, why haven't we got Frawley there and that?" And I think the reason we don't have Frawley is because he played a huge number of minutes so far and he's earned himself a break. But when it comes to players who can be versatile, Lowry has that, and he's got that little bit of spark. I don't know what it is. Is it that he's short, that he thinks he needs to be so much more? And it's not that he thinks he needs to be, it's that he can be. He can be so much more. He can be that player who evades a tackle, steps a fella, and then sprints. I think Larry's a great player. I like watching him play when it's not against us. So it's, they've got a really strong team there. Their center partnership of McCluskey and Marshall, that's quite solid. That's very established in a way that Henshaw Turner isn't. So there's a lot of good matchups there. But I mentioned already, I think watching Prendergast versus Burns will be exciting. I think watching the two front rows compete, we all know what Henderson brings to a game. We all know what he's capable of. I'm just hoping that you look at how Ryan Baird was disrupting line out last week, and I want to see much, much more of the same this coming week and not give them clean, because their line out maul is an absolute weapon and has been for the last couple of years. So I want to see strong defense against that pack, and for our lads to be doing the right things and making sure that they're not getting those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of interesting matchups there, but like I say, Ulster, I mean, they're currently fifth in the URC, but a defeat here could see them actually fall out of the top eight if other results go a certain way. And let's not forget, of course, the all important Irish Shield, where Leinster have gotten off to a really good start, and Ulster the only team we haven't played. We still play them twice in our final three matches, so there's a lot of implications there. So it's great. It's great for these fixtures to see them go so strong coming to Dublin.
Yeah, and I think with regards to the Irish Shield, I was doing the maths on it earlier. I think if we were to get a bonus point against them, we would only need one more point from other games to seal up the Irish Shield, possibly two, depending on whether or not Ulster were to get a bonus point as well. But if it was a 5-0 split on the points, I'm not saying that's what it will be, but if it were, that'd be the Shield almost sealed. Of course, you know itself. Nothing's won at the new year.
Exactly. It's all to play for. Okay, so let's move on and quick look at the officials there. You see Frank Murphy. We talk about him when he's reffing us against Munster. So now we have him against Ulster. That is what it is. It's an all Irish team as usual for the interpros. The weather now, obviously, we're recording on Friday, so the Monday is a good bit away, but the forecast this far out anyway is it looks like it's not as bad as it would have been at Thomond, so we definitely take that. for starters, but we'll see what it's like on the Monday. And before we go to your prediction, Connor, just a quick look at the other Interpro this weekend, Connacht against Munster.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough ask for Munster looking at their injury list. And I know some of those injuries, they might be looking and going, how have we got this list? It's really difficult for them, and I can't see how the players they do have available will have enough against Connacht being, at much better strength. Again, Connacht aren't at full strength. They're going to be missing a few players themselves that they would have loved to have for this game. But I think the number of players that Munster will be missing, I think it might be too much for them. And it's disappointing. And it is disappointing to see some of the players who got injured, particularly at the weekend. They're at very shallow depth now when it comes to hooker. They're at very shallow depth when it comes to second row. And like Keego says it frequently, and I don't want to try and steal Keego's place. I know I'm doing his usual preview slot, but a strong Munster is a strong Ireland, and we need to see some of those Munster players really make the step up. But I don't think they'll have enough this weekend against Connacht, who will be at better strength.
Absolutely. Well, that'd be an interesting one indeed as well. It's a great curtain raiser for us as well. It's kicking off at 3:00. Okay, so now that just leaves us head on the block time. What's your prediction for Leinster v Ulster?
I think Leinster by 9 or 10. And no disrespect to Ulster, I think that gap will become 9 or 10 down to a couple of mistakes of players fresh on the pitch in the last 10, 15 minutes, who aren't quite up to speed with what's going on. And you saw it against Sale a couple of weeks back when, fresh players coming on and suddenly the scoreline changes dramatically. And I think it'll be similarly so this weekend. I think we'll have done most of the hard work in the first sort of 50, 60 minutes. And interestingly, Ulster have not been brilliant at scoring in the second half over the last few games. But that's it. Like, interpros are a different ball game. So I think they'll grab a score, maybe even two back in the last little bit, but I don't think it'll be enough for them.
Yeah, they're definitely going by recent performances anyway, especially the Leinster defenses are playing. They'll need an 80-minute, full 80-minute performance, that's for sure. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there, man. Thanks a million. Thanks for coming on for a chat. Have a happy new year and hope to have you on again soon.
Thanks a million.
And many thanks to you all for tuning in to our latest preview show. Have a safe, happy new year and enjoy the match wherever you are. Be sure to follow us on all the usual social media channels, including Blue Sky. We will, of course, have a wrap pod for you this week, recording on Tuesday evening. So hopefully you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.